And you still got the other video.
Now it just kicked on. It just randomly kicked on right now.
No.
All right.
Okay.
Well, it'll work.
If it's working, it's working.
I literally was just sitting here and all of a sudden it just. Boom. I didn't change anything.
Hope it doesn't turn off.
Shit, man. I gotta redo all this stuff again. All right, let's try this again.
All right.
Welcome in, everyone, to this episode of the Batflip Podcast. My name is Damien, here with David and Matt. If you are watching on YouTube and you saw our 10-second video, no, you didn't. Thank you guys for being here with us this week after we had last week off. But we're going to do a division breakdown this week. We're 2 months in. We haven't done one yet, so let's look at the standings, kind of see how teams stack up, and then kind of mention what's been happening with them and who we kind of see trending which way and whatever. But before we get into all that, David, how are we doing this week?
I'm doing all right. Work was rough today, but sometimes it is. Baseball wise, my team keeps losing, and the division races are kind of boring. There's no one even within 3 games of the division leaders. So this will be a very interesting breakdown because there's a lot of teams that we kind of figured would be, competing with some of these division leaders, and no one's really hanging on right now. It's kind of a boring season so far. And that's kind of annoying because we're here to talk about baseball, competitive baseball, and there aren't a whole lot of teams playing it competitive. Everybody's 500 right now. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I think same on pretty much everything. I guess my day at work wasn't quite as rough. Hate to hear that, but I mean, my team's not playing well at all, and the divisions are all kind of not great. I mean, the closest one, you said there's only one within 4 games, so the closest one's 3 games, and um, it's a good time to look at it though. I think kind of the table's been set as to what we might see the rest of the season, where everyone stands. So I'm excited to get to talking about it. But how have you been, Damien?
I've been doing well. Kind of took a little recharge with the week off last week, and excited to get back into this. We got some exciting things in the pipeline here for the next 2 months. So it's been really exciting, kind of getting that in order, and I can't wait for the content we're going to bring you guys here soon. But like you said, I think this is a really good time to kind of look at this. A couple months in, we get a bigger sample size than the kind of the 1 month stretches we were doing it last year. And since there really hasn't been much going on, like you guys said, there's been a lot of just meh baseball played this year so far. It kind of just leads itself into doing this at this time. So let's just jump into, we'll start with the National League this time. Let's start with the NL West. And if you're on YouTube, you'll see we have the standings pulled up right here. But the Dodgers lead the division at 38-23. And then they had a 6.5 game lead over the San Diego Padres at 32-30. And then the Giants are at 29-31, 8.5 back. And then Arizona at 27-32, 10 games back. And then Colorado is 21-37, 15.5 games back. I think we all expected LA to kind of be the head of this division, but I think we expected those middle three teams there with the Padres, Giants, and Diamondbacks to play a little bit better than they have. But we'll go ahead and start with Matt. What has been your look and thoughts of the NL West and how it's played out so far this year?
I think it's played out pretty close to what I expected so far. I mean, the Dodgers have a lot of talent. They're the best team here. The top of that lineup is with their top 4 or 5 guys is really, really good. They have some, question marks kind of at the bottom of the lineup. We saw it with, James Outman getting optioned to AAA, and then, Andy Pages has stepped in pretty well for them. So, but I mean, the top of that lineup, the top 4 guys is so good. And then, Teoscar Hernandez has been pretty good too, as their 5th guy. And that's been a really good team so far. As expected, the pitching's gone well. Yamamoto has definitely translated well to the big leagues. And Glass now is having a great year. So, the Dodgers have been really solid. I mean, the Padres are over 500. I think we all expected them to be pretty decent. Maybe not as good as the Dodgers, but we thought they'd be a 500-ish team that could maybe compete for a wild card spot, and that's what they've been so far. Pretty impressive with some of the things they've done. Jerickson Profar is having a crazy good year, which is shocking because he had a couple of decent years where he kind of looked like he had become kind of a role player on a good team for a few years there with the Padres. And last year he went to Colorado, where you would expect him to be pretty good at the plate, but he was absolutely unplayable last year. I think he even got released by Colorado, and he's been really good for them. They got a few good stories like that. But, the pitching injuries are not helping them right now. I think Musgrove and Darvish both got put on the IL this week, and Dylan Cease has been really good for them. So there is some silver lining for it. But yeah, the Padres have been, they've been fine. I think the Giants with Snell really struggling, being hurt a lot. The Giants just don't have like any high end talent. They've got a team full of fine role players. They don't have any high end talent except for Logan Webb, and it's going to be hard to win that way. They just don't have anybody that can carry them when the rest of the team's struggling. They struggle offensively. I mean, their pitching's all right. The top of their rotation's pretty good. Jordan Hicks has been a nice player for them this year, but they look to be the 3rd or 4th team in this division. And the Diamondbacks been the team that's disappointing for me. And I think the big reason they're so disappointing is Corbin Carroll has been awful. I mean, he has really been bad at the plate, a 65 WRC plus. He's not hitting the ball hard. I do think that the shoulder injury has had a lot to do with this. He's dealt with those in the past, and I think that's a problem. And hopefully he's able to, kind of maybe that shoulder heals up a little bit more as we go forward. Hopefully it gets better. But man, that's been tough. And the Rockies are bad, but they have won they had this atrocious start where they were the worst team in baseball. Then they have been a little bit better since then, but they're still really, really bad. So, but yeah, it's been interesting. I think it's gonna be interesting to see how what goes forward. I mean, the Dodgers are gonna run away with the division. It's gonna be interesting to see how the Padres, Giants, and Diamondbacks shake out. Are the Diamondbacks gonna turn it around? With some of these guys in their lineup, figuring it out. Or the Giants the Padres gonna, kind of get healthy in the pitching staff, and or the Giants are I think the Giants are just a 500 team. Honestly, I don't think they have any upside. I don't think they have like a really low floor, but they have no upside. So it's kind of a big mess in the middle, but with the Dodgers on top and the Rockies on bottom.
there have been a few interesting performances I do want to highlight from guys Matt didn't mention, of the group that is kind of playing in that NL West. Overall, I think Matt's absolutely right. Right, Giants are kind of a 500 team. Diamondbacks are underperforming right now. Padres are, they've been going for it, and I think that addition of Luis Arias is really helping the Padres maybe keep pace with the Dodgers. I think it'll be a little, feudal in the long run, but they may get into the wild card spot with that kind of addition. But the guys who are kind of shockingly performing really well, Ezekiel Tovar has strung together a 350 WOBA, a 300 batting average with 8 home runs. I think that's the first offensive output we've seen from a guy who just signed like a $100 million extension. So that's good to see for the Rockies. Patrick Bailey has had a 135 WRC plus as a defensive catcher, kind of splitting time over there in the Giants. He's got 4 home runs and that 135 WRC plus, but he's been a very, very good defensive catcher for them. And then the guy I really wanted to note is that the Ryan McMahon breakout looks like it might be here. He's got a 368 WOBA, 371 on base percentage, 10 home runs already. Playing his good defense at third base for the Colorado Rockies, and as that organization maybe finally thinks that they're going to choose a direction, maybe Ryan McMahon might be the first guy off the block. He's got a pretty affordable contract, and if he's putting together a WRC plus up there in the 125s with the Coors Field buff, where he's been kind of a 100 guy the last couple of seasons, that could be a huge trade deadline swing. Last guy I want to throw out there is Christian Walker for the Diamondbacks, who has got a 134 WRC plus 12 home runs, in this kind of third way through the season. He's just doing it again. Christian Walker, really impactful first baseman for the Diamondbacks. And if they decide to go like sell mode, I think Christian Walker's a free agent after the season. So he might be one of those guys that impacts the playoffs in some way, even if it's not with the Diamondbacks, but they're not out of it yet.
Yeah, I mean, one guy that I wanted to mention too, I thought you were going to mention there once you finally got to Arizona, the season that Jock Peterson's having.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
People aren't looking into it. He's batting 300 with a 404 on base. Obviously, he always slugs, but he has a 169 WRC plus. And it's not all just homers. He has 7 homers, which you expect Jock maybe have a little bit more, but he hasn't had the power output that he's had the last couple years. Kind of seems like that's where he's at right now, but he's just starting to turn into a much better hitter.
Well, I think there's a specific reason for that. I'm checking the splits.
Well, they only use him against righties.
Yeah,
It very much is only platoon based, but it's just the fact that even then he's starting to become the guy you really expect him.
He's got 9 plate appearances versus lefties, and he's got a home run. He's hitting 333. It's not even that bad in the limited exposure. I really think that's always been a possibility that, given extreme platoon splits, Jock Peterson could pull out some good batted ball luck and end up with a really good season.
But yeah, he's another guy that's having a really good season for that Arizona team. But you guys have mentioned Snell's injury concerns. Jordan Montgomery's not been good this year either. Arizona's been missing Eduardo Rodriguez as well. Obviously the Corbin Carroll shoulder injury, there's been a plethora of teams of injuries and stuff that have bothered and plagued all of these teams. The Padres have dealt with starting pitching injuries. The Giants have just dealt with injuries altogether. Obviously Arizona's missing, a couple of their key players, and even the one that is playing hasn't been good. As good as the Dodgers have been, I think they've missed 5 bullpen arms. Evan Phillips, Ryan Brazier, Joe Kelly, Brusdar Graterol. These are all guys they've missed during this year too. I expect probably the Padres to be probably the most aggressive team in trying to make some more moves to get into position more, but it just kind of seems like this is something that the Dodgers are going to kind of walk away with.
I want to mention one more thing with the Padres, and that is that, this team's been really good, or not. I won't say really good. They've been solid. They've been good, above 500, keeping themselves afloat with pretty much no contribution from Manny Machado, who's been pretty mediocre. He's been below average at the plate. He DH'd for a while. He's playing third base now, but he's had a rough season so far compared to Manny Machado's standards. And then Xander Bogaerts had a 72 WRC plus, and then he got hurt. And correct me if I'm wrong, but is he out for the season, or is he just out for the rest of for a while?
It's for a while, if not the season. He fractured part of his shoulder.
I knew he fractured something in his shoulder, and because I was watching the game, it happened against the Braves, and he was diving for a ball, and so I mean that's one of those things. It's like, if some of these teams, and we'll talk about more teams later like this. Some of these teams just their stars have to play. They have to play well. Like for the Padres to win, Manny Machado has got to be a star, because that's what he's getting paid to do. That's what's concerned me about the Padres, is that they've signed these giant contracts like him, Xander Bogaerts, Fernando Tatis Jr. Those guys have got to be stars, because that's the contracts they're on. And with their aging, with the way that they will age, like they'll be paying a lot of money for non-stars pretty soon. And I'm hoping that that's not coming to fruition right now, and that it's just a bad start for Manny. But this happened last year too, so we'll see what happens there. And of course the pitching too. Like, I mean, Joe Musgrove before his injury was one of the worst pitchers in the National League. So I mean, their pitching's got to get better.
Their bullpen's been
Zach Gallen's on the IL too over there, so
Yeah.
the pitching of this whole division seems to be very, in flux.
Yeah. The one other last final note on the Padres. Everyone talked in the offseason about how bad their bullpen was last year, but I was just looking at their pitching numbers. Oh my gosh, their bullpen. Adrian Morejon, who was a former pretty high prospect, has been unbelievably good. Jeremiah Estrada, who I think David's pretty familiar with, has been.
I said it in the offseason.
Didn't he have
Bad move.
He had a stretch of 15 strikeouts in a row or something, didn't he? Was it 15?
13.
13?
13 in a row.
It was a lot.
Did he get up to 15? It was 13 when I saw it.
But. Yeah. And then Robert Suarez, who I think I gave a lot of grief to on the contract they gave him, has been really good too. He's got a .69 ERA. It's a nice ERA there, and a .69 home run per 9. So he's having an interesting season. But yeah, this is this team, they've got some, they just got to have their guys go. I mean, that's kind of the thing.
So let's jump over to the National League East now, where we have the Philadelphia Phillies leading the division at 41-19, the Atlanta Braves at 33-24, 6.5 games back, the Washington Nationals at 27-31, 13 games back, the Mets at 24-35, 16.5 back, and then the Marlins at 21-39, 20 games back. So, David, what is your thoughts on the NL East so far?
Yeah, I'll go top down, and I would say there's a couple of big surprises in this division and a couple of obvious things that are happening before we go into players. First of all, the Phillies have been unreal this season, right? 41 wins, second most in Major League Baseball. They're getting contributions up and down the lineup from everybody, and this is with a pretty slow start from Nick Castellanos. Bryce Harper hasn't been particularly impactful. It's been a lot of that pitching staff as well. They re-signed Aaron Nola. He's at least been solid, right? Zach Wheeler's been Zach Wheeler. He's been a top 5 pitcher in baseball. He's really making his case for, being that top paid pitcher in Major League Baseball that he is right now, I believe. And then Ranger Suarez has come out of nowhere, right? So the Phillies have been excellent with, regards to pitching, with regards to their offensive output. All that money they've thrown onto the team has resulted in a team that is currently leading the Braves by 6.5 games, which none of us picked. But the second big surprise is that the Mets once again continue to be terrible, and they're so bad right now that they're behind the Nationals. They've got players saying that they're playing for the worst organization in the country and getting DFA. The Mets are a disaster again, and I'm wondering how long Steve Cohen's going to kind of put up with this. Surely David Stearns is going to get to selling here and trying to do kind of a short rebuild, but the Mets are absolutely atrocious right now. And the big, I think, blow is that they've brought Edwin Diaz back, but he has not been Edwin Diaz pre-injury. He has just simply been rusty, and they've blown a lot of late leads. It's a team that is not performing well at all. And not that that's necessarily a surprise, but it's just been such a public surprise. I think that that's what we're kind of running into. So Phillies being on the top, surprising, and then the Mets being behind the Nationals, which the Nationals are kind of a perpetually rebuilding team for a while here, and that's also a big surprise for me.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk for 2 hours about the Braves season so far, but I'll keep it short. The Braves have been weird. The pitching, I want to start, but the starting pitching has been excellent. Like Chris Sale, he had a bad start on Saturday, but Chris Sale's been like a Cy Young candidate. He hasn't missed a start. He's got 11. He's got an 11 strikeout per 9, 1 walk per 9 ratio right now. He's getting the ball on the ground at almost 50% rate. He's been insane. Max Fried's getting the ball on the ground at a 63% rate. He's taking a no-hitter through 5 innings 3 times this year so far. And he's, after 2 awful starts start the season, he's down under a 3 ERA. And then Ronaldo Lopez, who was a reliever for like 3 years, has a 1.73 ERA, which is insane. So the Braves pitching has been really good. The bullpen's been a little inconsistent, but they've been good. Raisel Iglesias has been solid as the closer. Pierce Johnson's having a good year. Joe Jimenez has been fine. Minter was fine, but he's now on the IL. I don't know if we had mentioned that, but he's on the IL now with a hip issue. So hopefully it's not an arm injury, so hopefully he can come back. But the big thing with the Braves has been the offense, and this is where they've really struggled. Over the last month, they've been like a bottom 5 offense in baseball. And the big thing here is that they've lost their 2 best players, Spencer Strider and Ronald Acuna Jr. on both ends. But really in the lineup, I mean, none of the stars have really performed all that well. Like Austin Riley right now has he's been really, really rough at the plate this year. He has missed some games. He missed about 2 weeks, but he's got a 91 WRC plus, which, I mean, Austin Riley is like a guy who everyone was calling the best third baseman in baseball coming into the season. And he's got to be better than that, like for the Braves to be successful. And, Ronald Acuna was struggling a little bit. Marcell Ozuna has been insanely good, but there's just no depth in the lineup like right now. I mean, Michael Harris has been rough at the plate. Orlando Arcia has been terrible at the plate. Matt Olson's been not Matt Olson like, at the plate. So, and then of course with that injury to Ronald Acuna out for the year with the torn ACL, you really, you want Kelenic to be a platoon guy. And now he's playing every day. You got Duvall playing every day. Neither one of those guys have really been excellent. I mean, Kelenic's been fine. He's been like a league average hitter. Duvall's been fine-ish. He's been league average-ish, but it's like you're missing a big piece. And when everyone else isn't picking up the slack, you're going to struggle. So, that's been a problem. And but I don't think all is lost for the Braves. The Phillies pitching, to me, is what's really set them apart. I didn't know that Zach Wheeler had another gear in him after the last couple of years. He's been a very, very good pitcher for a long time now, but like he's had another gear this year. He developed that splitter, and he has been absolutely phenomenal. A 2.32 ERA and 73 and 2/3 innings. And Ranger Suarez has come out of Ranger Suarez has been good for a while, but he's come out of nowhere to like start really striking people out and not walking anybody. He reminds me a little bit of Framber Valdez with the way that it's this lefty that was not really a high-end prospect that comes out. He's got a good sinker curveball combo, and he gets the ball on the ground a lot, and then he all of a sudden learns how to get people to whiff. Like that's what this feels like to me. And then of course they got Aaron Nola as well as a really solid pitcher. Like he's really good, and nobody really talks about him because those other 2 guys have been so good. And their bullpen's been really solid too. I mean, Matt Strahm, Jeff Hoffman, Jose Alvarado, like they've all been pretty good. So that pitching's been awesome. Alec Boehm's been great at the plate. That's been a big deal for them this year. He's cut his strikeout rate to like 13%, which is really, really nice for a guy who probably has to be a pretty good contact guy to be successful. He doesn't lift the ball that much. He's only got 5 home runs this year, but if he's hitting, if his strikeout rates drop that much, then that's really good for them. And they've done this without Trey Turner for a lot of games too. I don't think people really remember. Yeah, he's been out for a while, and I don't know when he's coming back. I know it was a hamstring issue, but
he was just starting to get back going, and he felt a little soreness, so he's taking a few more days off.
I gotcha. So, I mean, the Phillies should still. I don't think the Phillies are as good as their record is right now. They have played probably the weakest schedule in the majors so far. I don't know. It's probably changed by now, but for like a month and a half stretch, they'd only played one team with a winning record. But to win divisions and to win in the regular season, you have got to dominate the teams that aren't good. And I can't sit here as a Braves fan and talk about the Phillies' week schedule when they have a week where they go 4-6 against the Nationals, A's, and Pirates. So, I mean, that's a thing. And then, the rest of the division. I mean, I think David hit on the Mets pretty well. I mean, the Mets are just a disaster. That whole franchise, like, it's a mess right now. They don't have a direction that they want to go. You can tell Steve Cohen's kind of chomping at the bit to try to like build bring in major leaguers. Like, we need to be good, but they're in a situation where they just got to go full rebuild because their key players are not good. Like, their core is not good. Nemo is fine. He's solid, but like Jeff McNeil is bad. Pete Alonso has not been good this year, and he's about to be a free agent. Like, Lindor is still pretty good, but he's on an enormous contract.
Pete Alonso's got a 125 WRC plus and 13 home runs. Like, he's doing Pete Alonso things, but Christian Walker is a better version of Pete Alonso right now.
Like, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, Pete Alonso, you're expecting him to be your superstar, and he's a terrible defensive first baseman who's a good hitter still. Like, he's a good hitter, but he's, to be what he is, he's got to be an elite hitter, like, with his profile, and he's not. And
yep.
But of course I don't know that anybody should have expected the Mets to be great this year. Their pitching staff looked horrible on paper. They've actually gotten a really good season from Luis Severino, but I'm not that surprised about that, honestly. But they've been good. The Nationals have been surprisingly like adequate this year, so that's been interesting. C.J. Abrams has looked good. Lane Thomas is kind of repeating last year, which is nice. Mackenzie Gore's had a really good year so far. And then I don't think David mentioned the Marlins, but we've talked about them a bit. But I am
lit
still
up today.
Oh, who did? Mackenzie Gore? You said Mackenzie Gore got lit up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see that. But anyways, like the Marlins are like, I don't think people really expected them to be one of the worst teams in baseball.
Marias.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, but that was a reaction to them having like a 6-25 start or something. Like, I don't think anybody coming into the season expected that. I don't think anybody expected them to make the playoffs again. But like, I think we kind of expected them to be a 75 win team type deal. It'd be better than the Nationals and be kind of neck and neck with the Mets maybe. But it's definitely been interesting, but we'll see what happens. This division could still get interesting. The Braves, they still got all those players. They still got Riley and Olsen and Ozuna and and Michael Harris. They've still got all these name brand players, and then their pitching's been so good. If they can continue to pitch and some of those guys get it going, they could run down the Phillies. I mean, it's not out of the question. And but the Phillies are clearly the favorite in this division now by a pretty good margin, and the Braves are going to have to really play better than they have over the last month for them to stick in the playoffs, because it's been the problem's not the record, the problem's the process for them. The process has not been good, so we'll see what happens. I'm definitely interested to see if they're able to turn it around, and I'm interested to see what these teams do at the trade deadline too, because both of those two teams have pretty significant holes right now. So this is gonna be a big couple of months for that.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be interesting to see how both teams react here. Where if the Braves are going to make moves with Alex Anthopoulos, having to push with Strider and Acuna being out, And if the Phillies just kind of go more status quo and like let's get Trey Turner back and like let's just trust who we've got right now. Which another name you guys didn't even mention who's having a great season too is Christopher Sanchez,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
he's
Edmundo
looked
Sosa too.
really good. Yeah, Edmundo Sosa too, but obviously he's going to transition more to the bench role when Trey Turner comes back. But
Yep.
I mean, the Phillies top four in that rotation right now with Wheeler, Nola, who we know. You guys talked a bunch about Ranger Suarez, but Christopher Sanchez being that kind of fourth guy there too in the season he's having. I think he has like a
Yeah.
2.80 ERA and like a 3 FIP or something. Like he's been really good as well. So that's definitely another key to the cog behind what the Phillies have done this year. But let's jump over to the National League Central now, where we have the Milwaukee Brewers at 36 and 23. We get the St. Louis Cardinals in second at 28 and 29, 7 games back. The Cubs at 29 and 31, 7.5 games back. The Pirates at 27 and 32, 9 games back. And the Reds at 26 and 33, 10 games back. Had you told me at the beginning of this year, going into June, this would be one of the biggest division leads in baseball, I would have said you're crazy. And then if you would tell me who is in which position in this league, standings wise, I also would have said you're crazy because I don't think any of these people are in the spot where I think they would be at in June.
Yeah.
It's
I guess
Go-
I could
go for it,
start
Matt.
because I'll be more brief than David on the Central. But because he's got his team here. But I was gonna say that I've been surprised about the Brewers. I really have. Like they've been really good. William Contreras has taken yet another step forward to being. I mean, is he the best catcher in baseball right now?
No.
Like, it's close. I
He
mean,
might be.
No.
It's close. I think he could be like him him and Will Smith are neck and neck. I mean, their numbers are pretty much identical this season. So, um, like they're both very very good, and Willie Adames has gotten rid of the cloud over his head with all the bad luck he had last year. Last year he had I mean, I tell you, he had as unlucky a season as I've seen last year. He's typically a very high BABIP guy, and last year he had a 259 BABIP, and it was a problem. And this year that's rebounded back to his career norms. So 126 WRC plus while still playing very good defense at shortstop. That'll play. And then you add in like Bryce Terang's having a good year. Christian Yelich has been really good when he's been out there. He's been injured a bit. I think he's back now, so maybe he can kind of keep it going. And I mean they've just been deep. Like Gary Sanchez as the backup catcher, sometimes DH type. He's got a 116 WRC plus. Like Reese Hoskins has a 130 WRC plus. He's been really good. Sal Frelick's has been back to a league average hitter after a rotten start. Bryce Terang's been awesome. Like I don't think anybody really saw that coming, but this team they've got this, and then the pitching has been the pitching's been solid. I think that it hadn't been fantastic, but there was a lot of concern about that pitching staff when they traded Corbin Burns in the offseason. But Freddie Peralta, I think everyone was pretty confident was going to be good. But I mean, the rest of their guys, like the Robert Gasser, has been really good. He got him in the Hader trade a couple years ago. The bullpen, they still pull relievers out like crazy. Elvis Peguero has a sub-3 ERA. Hobie Milner's been really solid as a lefty specialist. Brian Hudson's been really good. Trevor McGill has been really good. Like, it's been really interesting to see these guys perform as well as they have. And I thought that if their pitching staff was going to be real successful, they'd get a breakout from DL Hall or Aaron Ashby, who's a former top prospect, would break out, something like that. But they've been really good without those guys having any success at all. So very impressive so far for the Brewers. The Cardinals have taken over second place, and the Cardinals still have a lot of name brand talent. Their pitching has been back to being at least adequate this year. Sonny Gray's been awesome. I think he was a really good signing. I really like that signing in the offseason. Lance Lynn, believe it or not, has been very good. He's got a 3.23 ERA. I think they poured some devil magic on the Cardinals with him this year. And then you got like Kyle Gibson's got a 3.6 ERA. A lot of these moves that people were kind of giving him a hard time about that I kind of said they're not fantastic moves, but they could work, have turned out to generally be pretty good, especially Sonny Gray. So that's been interesting. The bullpen is, their bullpen's okay. The pitching's not anything to write home about still, but they're better than I think they were kind of anticipated to be. And then the lineup is fine. They've got they've got some issues with they've got some issues with some guys struggling. Paul Goldschmidt really struggled to start the season. He has kind of pulled it back up a little bit. He's been a little bit better lately. Wilson Contreras being hurt really sucks because he was having a great year. But Nolan Gorman's been pretty good. He's actually been solid defensively. Mason Wynn has really been the guy though that's been really impressive to me. So this is another team. They're still under 500. I don't fully believe in them. I think the biggest thing for this team is they've got to have their stars start to play. Arenado, Goldschmidt, both below average hitters right now, both below average defenders right now at their positions. I mean, they're gonna have to play better for this team to really kind of overcome the Brewers and hold off the Cubs, Pirates, Reds. David will talk more about the Cubs, but I think they've just dealt with a lot of injuries and some holes in their roster that probably should have been covered up that weren't, like bullpen that you could kind of see coming from a mile away, third base. Like there's been some issues with that. There's some issues with that roster but they've also had a lot of injuries. So it's kind of a perfect storm for a team that started pretty hot, but is now under 500. Briefly, the Pirates, Jared Jones and Paul Skeens have been good. Jared Jones has actually kind of fallen off lately. But and O'Neal Cruz is hitting the absolute cover off the baseball when he hits it. But the Pirates are still just kind of what I expected. They've got some cool talent. They're kind of fun, but they don't have much depth at all. And then the Reds have been really disappointing. They've dealt with a lot of injury issues this year too. Like Matt McLain hadn't played. There was another one. TJ Friedel just came back. He had a great year last year. He has barely played. They've had a lot of issues with just in general. So definitely an interesting division so far. It's been as an outsider to this division, it's been fun to see the Brewers kind of shut up the haters to start the season because everyone was picking them last and now they're first. So that's been kind of fun to watch as an outsider to this division. But it's going to be interesting to see how these other teams rebound.
Yeah, my computer's not getting replaced on Thursday, so I'll try to keep her brief here. But yeah, the Brewers have been impressive. Matt pretty well covered the Brewers and the Cardinals. I don't know that we need to further their kind of impact here. The Cubs have they did have a lot of injury issues, and the bullpen has been bad, but they've been cycling in depth, and they've gotten incredible starting pitching. So to me, the problems are pretty clear, and it's that the team, the established players on the Cubs need to hit. The Seiya Suzuki's, the Dansby Swansons, Cody Bellinger's been pretty rock solid, but he's also been hurt. And it seems like every time somebody gets going, then they get hurt, right? So the Cubs' current best player by wins above replacement on offense is Mike Tauchman. That's just not going to win you any games. It doesn't really matter what else you do. The team has just struggled to find consistency, and they've lost a lot of games as a result, and it's really frustrating. But they're also sloppy. They're not doing things well. They're not running the bases well. I think Nick Madrigal got thrown out like 10 times in the last season. So, it's bad. And I'm absolutely going to pick on him because they finally sent him down, and they bring up PCA, who's actually a good base runner, and it might help. So, young guys, we'll see what the Cubs can do.
Yeah. One last note on the Cubs: the defense is fourth worst in the big leagues by defensive value, which is pretty bad. I mean, they've got some good defensive players too, but like you said, there's just been a lot of them hurt. Like Dansby Swanson missed a bunch of games. Cody Bellinger's usually a pretty good defender in the outfield, and he's missed a lot of games and he's been playing third base a lot. But yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, and I think the Reds have been probably the most disappointing team here. You mentioned
Mhm.
they've had a lot of injuries, but I mean, Ellie had a really good start to the year. He's slumped recently, but I mean, you look at Spencer Steers, not had a good year. Jonathan India's not had a good year. Um, One of their big free agents of the offseason, Jamer Candelario, has been not good to start the year either. Um, really, their lone bright spot was like Jake Fraley, and then that's pretty much it outside this lineup. So they're they're a team that I would expect to, as the season goes on, to probably their numbers are going to creep back up. They're going to get hot here. I don't expect these guys to stay down for so long, but they've been really disappointing to start the year for sure. Um, and I think you guys have covered everybody else in this division
It's good.
to a pretty good mark. But
It's gonna be hard to win a lot of games when your best hitter has a 111 WRC plus.
yeah, well, I mean, I'm just like I expect their
Yeah.
numbers to turn around.
Oh yeah.
Like they're not going to stay this
No,
bad for a
I'm
while.
with you. I'm with you.
Like they're gonna make a run at some point. But let's jump over to the American League side now, and we'll jump over to the closest division race in baseball. And I say that because it's 3 games. It's the American League East, and that's the New York Yankees at 42-19, 3 games ahead of the Baltimore Orioles, who are 37-20. Then you got to the Boston Red Sox at 30-30, 11 and a half games back. Then the Tampa Bay Rays at 29-31, 12 and a half back. And then the Blue Jays at 28-30, also 12 and a half games back. Yeah, I think this division has been a little bit of a surprise just because of how bad the bottom 2 teams have been. I think we expected them to be a little bit better in the Blue Jays and Rays here. But I think the Yankees, I think their pitching has surprised us a little bit, but they're where we kind of expected. The Orioles have obviously been what they've been, what everyone has expected, and they've kind of continued on from last year. And then the Red Sox at 30-30. I think that's maybe a little bit of a surprise. But David, what do you think about the AL East so far?
The Yankees are a juggernaut, man, and I want to say I predicted it, and I'm clicking on our predictions thing just to double check because I thought I had the Yankees in there, and I did not. I had the Orioles, of course, but man, I'm telling you, the Yankees are a absolute beast. That this is a team that does not have Garrett Cole back yet, and it is put together. The addition of Juan Soto has made this lineup so formidable, right? I mean, between Aaron Judge and Soto, Anthony Volpe has stepped up as well. The lineup is just deep, and it's full of a team that's kind of gelled together very nicely to where you're not hearing anything about the Yankees right now, right? Usually, the last couple of seasons you've had, oh, so and so's having struggles. Aaron Boone's getting thrown out of the game for this reason. The Yankees have been a quietly excellent team. They've been the best team in baseball by record, and I think that kind of addition of Juan Soto has changed the way that clubhouse operates. It's allowed Aaron Judge to have some protection. It's allowed Anthony Volpe to step into the leadoff role. That's a group that is just stepped into a really good situation, and my assumption is that it leads to Juan Soto staying a Yankee for years with a dump truck of money parked behind his house in New York. The Baltimore Orioles have a breakout season on their hands from Gunnar Henderson, who looks like an AL MVP candidate. He's going to have to fight off both Yankee star sluggers to win it. But yeah, Gunner's got 19 home runs. He's second in the American League in home runs behind Judge. So, it's looking like the Gunner show. And Adley Rutschman's been excellent as always. They're seeing so much production from those young guys that they've called up. Right, Colton Cowser's been great. Jordan Westberg's been great. Grayson Rodriguez threw 6 really good innings tonight against the Toronto Blue Jays, and he missed a little bit of time, but the rotation's been able to hold together an offense that's really good. Put this team in any other division, I think they're winning it by an equal margin to a lot of these other teams. They're just in there with the Yankees right now, and everybody else is about what we expected. The Rays are way worse, but I would say the Rays having a bad season finally, after we finally went, no, we're not going to pick against the Rays. That doesn't surprise me at all, right? Like the Rays, of course, are going to finally have a bad season. You can't keep getting away with trading away the contracts that they do, right? Trading away your Tyler Glasnows and stuff like that. You have to build around someone, and the Rays kind of just never decide that the one guy they decided to build around got removed from baseball for good reasons. So it's a tough situation for the Rays. They haven't found their shortstop. Junior Camanero's out with a shoulder injury. Like they don't have I think a future for this season, but you'll see the Rays back really quickly because once Caminero gets back, and they'll sort out third base, they'll figure out who they want. Like Xavier Isaac kind of looks like a future absolute stud masher. This team will be interesting at the deadline if they decide to sell, because they've got some very interesting major league pieces that could fetch a haul. But ultimately, the Blue Jays are another team they're going to sell. They might sell the stars. They might just sell the kind of complementary pieces like Danny Jansen or Jordan Romano or one of those. Yusei Kikuchi, those guys should be on the move. But if Vlad Jr. or Bo Bichette go on the market, it could get exciting. We could see some fireworks in July. And both of these teams feel like teams that are just they're struggling to stay above water right now. Red Sox, this is what we expected, right? 500 team. They're playing like a 500 team. They've been like 500 at every record all the way through. So Red Sox are what I expected. Blue Jays and Rays are worse. Yankees are a juggernaut. It's going to be tough to face that demon group coming into October.
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well, David. The Yankees, like you said, I mean, they're just an absolute wagon right now. Aaron Judge, after everyone was talking about all the discussion points were how slow of a start Aaron Judge was having at the end of April. Well, he leads the major leagues in WAR now in F4, and he's got a 198 WRC plus. He's hit 21 homers. He's repeating right now. I mean, and I'm not sure that it's going to continue the rest of the season this way, but right now he's repeating his 62 home run MVP season from year before last. And last year he was really close to that pace too, but he spent so much time injured that he wasn't able to really to continue it. But he's been unbelievable. Juan Soto has been, as expected, very, very good. He's actually been better defensively than I think I would have ever expected. That having that smaller amount of ground to cover in right field's really helped there. But he's been really good. Anthony Volpe's really breaking out this year, and I think that's kind of the key. You knew that Judge and Soto were going to be good. You were kind of questioning are the rest of their guys, like which ones are going to step up and take the next step. And you think maybe Gleyber Torres or DJ LeMahieu has a little bit of a renaissance year or something like that. But Anthony Rizzo hadn't had a good year at all. But Anthony Volpe's been the guy. He's got a 130 WRC plus while still playing an excellent defense and being an excellent base runner. So that's been great. The depth has been better than expected. Trevino and Alex Verdugo have both been really good. Giancarlo Stanton's been fine. He's slugging very well. So the Yankees bats have been awesome. The pitching's been very good ERA wise. There's some reason to believe that a little bit of it is going to regress. I mean, you've got they're a full run lower on their ERA than their FIP, which is typically, you might have individuals that are able to sustain something like that, but as a team, usually it's difficult unless you are just an absolute elite defensive team, which the Yankees are fine defensively, but I don't think they're like the greatest defensive team in the history of baseball. So they're pretty good. But Luis Gil has been a guy that's been incredible for them. Nestor Cortez is having a really good year. Clark Schmidt's been awesome for them too. And they've been able to weather the storm without Garrett Cole, because these guys have stepped up. And now if these guys do regress some, I don't know that Luis Rodon's going to keep up a 3 ERA when he's got like a 4.5 FIP, but Garrett Cole's going to come back and replace that production with his typical production. So that's a very good. This team's very good. I think they're going to end up being the team that wins this division. The Orioles have been really good too. David hit on that one really well. I don't have any more comments there. Red Sox have been fine. The Red Sox pitching has been unexpectedly good. Tanner Houck's been awesome. Cutter Crawford's been really good. But Tanner Houck's a guy that's really broken out this year, and I really believe in his breakout so far. The bats haven't been great for them. Devers has gotten it going now. He's having a really good year, but The rest of their bats just aren't great. Tyler O'Neill's having a little bit of a bounce back, but he's been injured a bit. But then you mentioned the Blue Jays and the Rays. I mean, I kind of called it with the Rays. I picked up fourth in this division, so I just had a feeling that they've done so much selling the last couple of years, plus adding on top of the selling, the amount of injuries they had coming into the season. It just wasn't gonna. Especially in this division that's so competitive, it's just gonna be very difficult. You look at their roster, and it just seems like they're not gonna be able to overtake these other teams in that with their current roster. And that's kind of been the case for them. And then the Blue Jays. I mean, you mentioned them maybe selling. Vlad Jr.'s finally gotten it going to a certain level. I still think there's another gear in there, but he's been better this year than he was last year. 133 WRC plus. He's only hit 5 home runs, but
6 tonight.
He did hit a 6th tonight, but a 390 on base percentage. So he's been pretty good. Bo Bichette's been awful. So that's been a big problem for them. That's one of those guys they rely on Bo Bichette, and he's got an 80 WRC plus, and this isn't exactly a guy who's an elite shortstop defender either. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch. I don't think they'll sell him just because they might in most years, but like he's been so bad at the plate that they're just going to be selling low on him. Like if he has a big second half, then you could probably get more in the offseason than you could have at the deadline. With that year and a half of control instead of 1 year of control. But and then the pitching's been pretty mediocre for them. I think they've been a little bit unlucky, but that this team's just not. I mean, it's kind of like the Rays, where I just don't know that they have the talent that the Yankees, Orioles have. Like they're just kind of in that middle ground. Like these 3 teams seem more like middle ground teams than they do like contenders. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out with these teams, whether to decide to buy or sell though, because they're probably all going to be around 500 at the deadline, and it'll be interesting.
Yeah, one thing to note that we didn't mention too with the Orioles is that they lost John Means and Tyler Wells to season-ending injuries, and John Means having to undergo another Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, that's
like after he just came back. I think he pitched 5 games or something. So that really sucks. I wish him all the best, but that's 2 guys that were going to be counted on into their rotation as well, and that's meant also on top of. Kyle Bradish did have a little bit of arm injury concern coming into the year. He's looked good since he's came back, but that could always creep back up because he didn't get any type of surgery. They just did the kind of rest and heals type stuff there. But let's jump over to the American League Central, where we got the Cleveland Guardians leading this division at 39-20. We got the Kansas City Royals at 36-25, 4 games back. The Minnesota Twins at 33-26, 6 games back. The Detroit Tigers at 29-30, 10 games back. And then the White Sox bringing up the rear of this division at 15-45, 24.5 games back. So, Matt, what's your thoughts on the American League Central so far this year?
Yeah, this has been a really interesting division. Coming into the season, we sat here and we thought, the Guardians could be. I think I picked them to be pretty good this year, and I thought the pitching, would be the reason. Shane Bieber would be he'd showed some signs that he might be back. I thought he would do really well, and then with Tristan McKenzie, Tanner Bybee, Gavin Williams, some of these other guys, they got Logan Allen. They've got some good options in that rotation to pair with those couple of really good starters. But it's been the opposite of that. It's been the offense that's performed well. You look at their pitching has been like Emmanuel Clase has the most WAR of their pitchers, and he's a reliever. Now he has been amazing, but still he's a reliever. Tanner Bybee's been really good, but I mean Tristan McKenzie's been awful. I guess his ERA is not bad, but hasn't performed all that well. Based on the metrics and stuff. Logan Allen's been pretty bad. He's got a 5.83 ERA. Shane Bieber got hurt. So those 3 guys that you're really counting on. Gavin Williams got hurt too. So all these guys that you were really counting on coming into the season have been injured or not performing. So, you end up in a situation where your offense has to carry you with a team that you don't expect that to be something that would happen with. But then David Fry decides to come out and have a 217 WRC plus in his first 41 games this year. So, which is I mean, he's got a 500 on base percentage. Like, where did this come from? Jose Ramirez is doing Jose Ramirez things. 144 WRC plus, plays good defense, runs the base as well. His base percentage is pretty low compared to normal. I bet that comes up. And Stephen Kwan, when healthy, has been solid. Andres Jimenez has been back to being an above average bat, which is very important for them. He's a very good player when he's, he's a very good defensive player, good base runner. Being above average bat has been good for him again. And Josh Naylor is performing fairly well too. So, I think there's some reasons to think this team might not be quite as good as their record. Obviously, they only have a 105 WRC plus on the season, and their pitching is, good, but not like elite of the elite. But they've been a fun team to watch, and they banked so many wins. They're in really good position right now to make the playoffs. The Twins have been interesting.
I before you move on,
go
Matt,
ahead,
I
go
do
ahead.
want to note. I do want to note one thing. That Jose Ramirez has an RBI for every game he's played,
Sheesh.
which is awesome.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
awesome.
tracking a stat like something like that because RBI isn't really it's not a it's a performance stat in that if you do well at it, we know you're having a good season, but it doesn't predict anything, right? He's just been guys in front of him are getting on base. If J-Ram did that and played 160 games, we have not seen someone hit 160 RBI since 1998. I think it was 1998 with Manny Ramirez. It was 98 or 99. So, that's a big stat watch, and I hope J-Ram gets it because that would be awesome.
Yeah, he's a really good player. So that'd be cool. It's a good note. But yeah, moving on to the Twins, like they've been interesting this year too. Their pitching has performed fairly well. Pablo Lopez ERA is pretty high. I'm not really that worried about him. He's still got a 27% strikeout rate and a 4% walk rate. He's had some really bad luck on fly balls this year. A 16% home run per fly ball is probably going to come down some. The metrics aren't bad on him. Joe Ryan's been really good. He's been kind of a similar type to what he was last year. The pitching's been good for them in general. I mean, the bats have been fine. You've got Carlos Correa's back to being a good player again, which last year he wasn't. He seems to be healthy right now, and he has only played 41 games, but when he's played this year, he seemed back to kind of his normal self, a 123 WRC plus, playing really good defense. Max Kepler's been good. Ryan Jeffers has been awesome. He kind of broke out last year. He's been excellent for them. Willie Castro's been really good. They got to get Byron Buxton going. I mean, it's another one of those situations where, man, they need the star to go. And Byron Buxton's the guy who was supposed to be the star of that team. And this is 2 years in a row now that he hasn't been himself. But, he's and I know he's obviously only played 42 games, but which seems to be the case every year. But it's he's one of those guys that if he can take off, then he can carry a team. So, but it's just a couple years in a row now that it's been rough for him. I think the most interesting team in this division so far, and the Twins will be fine. I think they're going to end up. I think they'll probably end up being close to winning this division, but I don't know. They've got a pretty good deficit right now, but the Royals have been the team that's been really interesting here. That team has been fun. Cole Reagans has been amazing. Seth Lugo has been amazing. Those pitching pickups were the pitching pickup of Seth Lugo. Getting Cole Reagans in that trade at the deadline last year was robbery. Brady Singer's been extremely good. Like, this pitching staff's been awesome. They've got a team ERA at 3.57. Their starters have a 3.21, 1.72. Michael Wacha's got a 4.24 ERA. He just went down with an injury too. Brady Singer's got a 2.63 ERA, and Alec Marsh has a 3.76 ERA, and their peripherals pretty much back that up. So that's been really good for them. I do worry a little bit about their bullpen. John Schreiber has been pretty good for them. Angel Zerpa, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I should learn because he's been really good for them too. you know, obviously there's some holes there. Will Smith was brought in as a closer for inexplicable reasons. Um, you know, I didn't understand that one. You know, Nick Anderson was brought into that trade. He's been pretty rough. Um, he might be hurt again too. I'm not 100% sure about that. But the lineup, Bobby Witt's doing Bobby Witt things. He's just kind of picked up where he left off last year. Salvador Perez has been very good. He's cut his strikeout rate and his walk rate's up. His walk rate has kind of trickled back down. I remember us talking about him in the first month of how good his plate discipline was looking. His walk rate's trickled back down a little bit, but he's still got a 149 WRC plus. And I think the most important thing with him is his defense has been adequate, which is great. Michael Garcia has been really solid. So this team, Vinny Pasquantino still hasn't really gotten going. So this team's offense has been pretty decent. The pitching though is so good. I think the Royals have probably overperformed so far, but they've banked enough wins where if they play 500 ball the rest of the season, which I think is kind of the quality of team they are, then they'll probably make the playoffs. I mean, they're on pace to win, like, you know, if they played 500 ball the rest of their season, they'd win about what, 85, 86 games, something like that. Like, that's going to be right in the running to make the playoffs. So good on the Royals. They've proven me wrong. The Tigers, they just can't hit. I mean, Riley Green's hit pretty well. Matt Vierling's hit well. Kerry Carpenter's hit well, but they just don't have any depth in that lineup. Like you look at, like, you've got your catchers haven't been good. I mean, you've got a guy with a 34 WRC plus playing 50 games. Spencer Torkelson, who showed signs that he was going to break out last year. Well, he's been absolutely horrible. Got option at AAA after being, you know, this is not looking good for Spencer Torkelson right now. I mean, the StatCast page was blue, and the performance wasn't there, and this is year 3 of a first overall pick in the big leagues who is a first base only guy who is still not even coming close to being a league average hitter. So, I mean, it's really looking bad for him. I mean, the pitching has been pretty good for them. Tariq Skubal's been amazing. I think we all kind of picked him to be really good. Jack Flaherty's been awesome, which is surprising to me, but good for him. You know, he's been great. He'll probably even he's been probably the best free agent, like those 1 year free agents that signed. Like you've had a few guys who have been probably better signings of multi-year deals, but of the 1 year guys, like Jack Flaherty's probably been the best one. You know, but it's just this team just doesn't have a lot of upside with that offense being what it is. So they're struggling. They're still at 500 or close to 500. So there's a world where they can figure it out. And then you've got the White Sox. So we don't really have to talk about them. They stink. I mean, they really do. Like that. This team is terrible. I want to shout out like maybe 3 guys on this team. Garrett Crochet has been awesome. He's been healthy, which is the most important thing for him. But he's shown that prospect status he had, he's kind of paying it off right now. And then Eric Fede has been a great signing for them. They brought him in from I think he was either in the KBO or the NPB overseas, and kind of reworking some things, adding a sweeper, that kind of thing. And he's been awesome. He's going to fetch them a pretty nice piece at the deadline, I think. And Garrett Crochet's a guy who's still young, and I don't know how much control he has left, but I mean, I think he actually might be lower on control than I realized. Yeah, he's a free agent in like 4 years, so he will either fetch them a absolute haul the way he's pitched so far, or he could potentially be extended and be a part of their next, good team if he can continue this. So I just wanted to shout out those 2 guys. I mean, the rest of their team has been, I mean, Paul DeYoung's been their best player. He's got double the WAR of anybody else on the team. That should put into perspective how bad this team is. They have a 74 WRC plus as a team. Like, that is hard to do. So White Sox, not good.
I'll just note that it is awesome that this division, which we kind of pegged as one of the worst ones in baseball, might actually be one of the best ones in baseball, given that the race at the top seems to be a 3-horse race, which is a little better than most of the divisions we talked about so far. and that we have two of the best pitchers, maybe three of the best pitchers in baseball in this division, and they're not on the first team, right? Like the Cy Young in the AL might be a race between Cole Reagans and Tariq Skubal. So very cool for this little division. And I think my favorite little nugget was the Jose Ramirez nugget I mentioned earlier. So I won't continue on this AL Central deep dive. Matt covered it pretty good.
Yeah, there's really not much else to say. Matt pretty much covered everything that there is to say about this division.
You can leave stuff for the rest of us, Matt. It's okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Just a little bit at least. But yeah, I mean, pretty much that White Sox are bad. That's all we just need to say. Let's move over to the American League West now, where we have the Seattle Mariners leading this division at 34-27. Texas Rangers at 29-30, 4 games back. The Houston Astros at 26-34, 7.5 games back. Oakland or Las Vegas or Sacramento or wherever else they're going to play next year. They're at 24-37, 10 games back. And then the Angels at 21-38, 12 games back. So, David, has anything surprised you in the American League West so far this year?
Yes, lots of things. I thought the Texas Rangers were going to be a lot better offensively than they have been. Corey Seager, I believe he went down with an injury, and before that he wasn't terribly Corey Seager-like, so that's not helping things. They've had injury in terms of their young guys too. Wyatt Langford and Evan Carter have both missed time. They have not been able to find their rhythm. Adolis Garcia has been Adolis Garcia, very normal, big power-heavy season. Marcus Semien just hit his 10th home run tonight. He's been Mr. Consistent once again, but this team is feeling that lack of pitching that we talked about in the offseason, and it's reflected in their 500 record, right? And I'm starting with them because they're the defending World Series champs, but I mean, they will get Max Scherzer back. They will get Jacob deGrom back this summer, right? This is a team that their best baseball is in front of them. I'm still thinking they're the favorite to win this division based on that, but this is a team underperforming right now for sure, and they will be aggressive at the deadline because they've already cashed in their chips. Might as well push the rest of them in, right? So I anticipate the Rangers will find a way to make some splashes going forward. The maybe even bigger shock than that is that the Houston Astros are still well below 500 right now, and I don't know if I see a way out for this group, right? We just got the news today. Jose Urquidy is out with potentially an elbow injury, another Tommy John for him. That would be 2 pitchers we've talked about tonight that's had 2 Tommy Johns. That stinks. Also happening tonight, Kyle Tucker fouled a ball off a shin, left the game.
Oh, goodness.
And Kyle Tucker has been their best offensive player. So not good for the Houston Astros. How about them Oakland Athletics? We talked about Mason Miller a couple of times already this season, and he's had an incredible year, but they've got like a 12 or 13 home run start from Shea Langoliers. Those might be his only 12 hits, but he's having a darn good defensive season at catcher as well, and the Oakland A's are not in last place, and that is progress in their last season in Oakland. They won't be a playoff team, but at least they're, not embarrassing. Who is embarrassing is the Shohei Ohtani-less, Mike Trout-less Angels. They are 21-38, just a miserable start. The Anthony Rendon stuff has not blown over. The lack of Ohtani has very clearly hindered this team even further than it already was with him. And this organization is getting ready to bottom out. And yet I have seen rumors that their first round pick will take the Zach Neto, Nolan Shanuel path to the majors. So if you're, we got some minor league stuff coming up to talk about the draft. If you're going to be paying attention to the major league draft coming up here on July 14th, the Angels pick might be a fast riser, which would be stupid. And the Angels are hurting the development of guys like Neto and Shanuel by doing that. So, here's hoping they don't ruin anybody's career. The Seattle Mariners are number 1 in this division, and I wanted to spend just a teensy bit of time on them. Bryce Miller, with that splitter, has been awesome this year. George Kirby has not actually been all that good, but I trust that George Kirby's with the command, with the velocity of that fastball, that he will get back going, right? His command has been there. The results just haven't gone his way, and he's still throwing 96 miles an hour. That's a guy that yeah, I feel very confident we'll get back to being really great. Luis Castillo's been awesome under a sub-3 ERA as well. The Seattle Mariners pitching staff is really carrying them, and offensively, it's not J-Rod, right? Like J-Rod has had major struggles this season. It's really been kind of a combination of guys. Yeah, I'm trying to pull up who they are. Cal Raleigh's been Cal Raleigh, right? 35% strikeout rate, 11 home runs.
Josh Rojas has been one.
Yeah, Josh Rojas has been good. But J-Rod has a 95 WRC plus, right? He's a one WAR player to this point, not the leader that I think they were expecting when they signed in that $180 million deal, I believe. But they're getting contributions from guys like Josh Rojas. Luke Raley's been really strong since getting traded over from Tampa Bay. I think he's kind of platooning. And then they've seen Ty France get a little bit of resurgence, get back above league average. But offensively, this is not a potent team right now, right? Their stars aren't playing like stars. One of their best offensive contributors is Dylan Moore. Like, I'm shocked that this team is in first place. They really need some offense, but that's what the trade deadline's for. And we know Jerry Dipoto is going to go trading for offense.
Oh, yeah.
So, they will be fine. They are positioning themselves really well, banking wins, like Matt said, to make it into the playoffs. They're going to have to hold off a hard-charging Texas Rangers to win this division, but I do feel confident that this team can make the playoffs, maybe as a wild card.
Yeah, and the one thing about the Mariners too, real quick, Matt, before I get to it, is that they do have some sneaky good guys in the minor leagues that could have them in play for somebody big at the deadline. Harry Ford, Cole Young, Emerson Hancock, like they have guys who other teams will want. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Jerry Dipoto, who, like you said, is aggressive, even be a guy that jumps on something early. That's kind of what he likes to do. He's usually been an early trade guy. At the end of June, beginning of July, it's usually when he likes to make some of his moves. I wouldn't be surprised to see him do it again and get somebody offensively in here. I don't know where it would be for what position, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Mariners. If you had told me that Cal Raleigh, Julio Rodriguez, J.P. Crawford, and Jorge Polanco would have a below-average offensive season and they'd still be in first place, I would have told you that you were crazy, and I picked them to win the division. So
and that George Kirby had a 4 ERA.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't have totally shocked me. George Kirby's he had like one blow up start. Like he gave up like 8 earned runs in one inning and one start. His metrics are really good. I'm not worried about him at all. But I think he's been really good in most of his outings. He's pitching a lot of innings. Like I think he's fine. But yeah, I mean they're pitching. I mean their pitching's carrying them. A 3.47 team ERA. The starters: Kirby, Castillo, Gilbert, Bryce Miller. They're all really good. I mean, Kirby's ERA will be in the low to mid threes by the time the season's over. These other guys seem to be capable of sustaining the same. Like, they've been awesome. The bullpen with Andres Munoz back there as the closer he's been incredible. The pitching staff really doesn't have any holes to it. It's just the offense has got to get going. Like, they signed Mitch Haniger in the offseason, and he's got a 76 WRC plus as a DH. Mitch Haniger, who they traded for, has been rough. Like, I mean, they've got to get going with some of their guys. But and I want to mention Julio Rodriguez did this last year too. Like, he had a horrible April. He started to figure it out a little bit in May, and then he had an absolute torrid second half. Like, he did this last year, so this might just be a thing with him. He's going to have to figure out a better way to work himself into the season. But you look at the rest of this division, and man, everyone's under 50% playoff odds. Like, the Astros playoff odds are 33% on Fangraphs right now.
They're going down after today too. They're losing to the Cardinals, and Kyle Tucker might miss time.
If Kyle Tucker misses time, like it's rough. But looking at the Rangers first, because I think they're in second place. So
they are.
Looking at them first, like Corey Seager, like you said, he's dealt with some things. He pulled back to being really good. I mean, 131 WRC plus is for a shortstop playing above average defense is really, really good. Although last year he put up like a 170, so I understand it being a little bit disappointing. But Marcus Simeon's been Marcus Simeon. He's a really solid hitter. While playing elite defense, running the bases well, and not missing any games. Josh Smith has been their third best offensive player, which is kind of crazy. He's actually been really good too. Like it's not been like, the rest of their team absolutely sucks. It's just been like Josh Smith has been pretty good. They got to get Nathaniel Lowe going. It was disappointing to watch, Wyatt Langford struggle like he did at the beginning of the year. Then he got hurt. So hopefully he can come back and get back, get going at some point. But we mentioned before the season, this was I think everybody really's problem with the Rangers was just going to be the pitching, and they have so many pitchers out to start the year. How will they hold up? And can they make it to the point where they get those pitchers back and still be within range? Because I think if they can get DeGrom back fully healthy, they get Tyler Mahle back off of his Tommy John, and if he gets healthy, then those two guys plus John Gray having a very good season so far, Nathan Eovaldi being really solid, like they could have a really good rotation at that point. And you don't even know what you might get from Scherzer when he comes back. So that could be a good thing for them. I have no idea how they've figured out fixing Kirby Yates, but they have. He's kind of 0.89 ERA, and the bullpen's been a little inconsistent, but it's been pretty good so far. But the Rangers are still within range, and I think that's something to look for going forward. The Astros, like David said, I mean they're still like they've weathered the storm a little bit, and they're kind of playing a little bit better now, but they're still just like there's just something with this team, and the pitching is not good. The pitching is a 4.3 ERA. Spencer Arrighetti leads their pitching staff in WAR right now, and he's got a 6 ERA. So that's something to like just to show you how bad they've been. Justin Verlander's metrics have been awful. His ERA is still pretty good, but he's only made 8 starts. They've had injuries. Framber Valdez missed some starts. Um, you know, Josh Hader's got a 3.7 ERA, which when you pay him the biggest closer deal in the history of baseball, you expect better than that. Christian Javier hasn't been great. The offense. I mean, Alex Bregman had a horrible start. He's been getting going a little bit, but Yanier Diaz has been decided he wanted to be Martin Maldonado. Since Martin Maldonado left, Yanier Diaz, I guess, took after him and decided to play like him, and he's got a 80 WRC plus, which actually that's better than Martin Maldonado, but still, Jose Abreu was a disaster. He's got negative 1.4 WAR in 27 games, which is hard to do. He got sent down to the minor leagues, and he kind of agreed to go down to try to work things out, but I don't. That contract looks awful right now, even though it's not a long-term deal. But yeah, I mean they're bad. The Angels are absolutely horrible. I mean, this is a team that was not going to be great before the season, but they've been like worst case scenario even then. Like Trout, Rendon both hurt. Um, you know, pitching has been. I think they've got who else? They've got another big injury too, don't they? Maybe they don't, but anyway, they've been bad. Like, I mean, if anything else, like they sent Reed Detmers to the minor leagues for inexplicable reasons too. I know his ERA is not good, but like his metrics are really good. They need to just let him work it out at the big league level. I mean, this team stinks. They really do.
Top down. Stinks from the
Yeah.
top down.
I mean, it does. I don't want to hate on them too much because we knew they were going to be bad coming into the year. But like this team is awful, and they really have no farm system too. The A's have been fine-ish. Brent Rooker has been really, really good this year, which is good for him. I mean, he's kind of showing that last year wasn't a total mirage. The BABIP's really high. He's not a 165 WRC plus player, but he's hitting the ball really hard. He's getting on base really well. He's walking a lot. Like he's gonna be. He's definitely getting the A's some value for when they eventually trade him. I do want to shout out JJ Bleday. He's a guy that kind of got cast off by the Marlins, and JJ Bleday's having a really good year. He's got a 130 WRC plus. He was a former high level draft pick. That struggled with the Marlins, but he's been good since he got to Oakland. So they figured something out with him, and he's the Marlins look kind of dumb for trading him, but they look dumb a lot. And the pitching, like I said, Mason Miller is out of his world. the rest of their guys. I mean, J.P. Sears is having a pretty solid looking start to his season. Mitch Spence has been fine. They've got some like fine pitchers. Paul Blackburn's pretty solid. The bullpen's been not terrible. So there's some reasons to look up a little bit for this team. Just as in, like, you've got some pieces that you might be able to move around, trade, get some real pieces back for. It's not like last year where you looked at their roster and you're like, there is absolutely nobody we can trade to get anything back for prospect-wise. And this year, they've got some pieces that they might be able to get some stuff back for. So that's been a success story for the A's so far. But yeah, interesting division for sure. But we'll see.
Well, now you know all about the entire Oakland Athletics team. That's something you can look forward to in 6 years when they're in Las Vegas. But that will wrap up the last division that we have, and the division breakdown for this one. Like David hinted at a little bit earlier, if you are a college baseball fan or a fan of the MLB draft and prospects at all, be sure to tune in next week. We'll have a little surprise going on for that one. But as far as this episode, it's going to get wrapped up. So thank you guys for tuning in to the Batfoot podcast, and we will catch you guys back next week.